Welcome back. Taking something old and turning it into something new. That's what the West Virginia Tin Man does, and is something that keeps him aging awesomely. Here's Sherrie with today's guest.
Well, we want to welcome Robert Villamagna to our show. So, Bob, your website says you are a mixed media artist working in Appalachia.
Right.
So, explain what mixed media.
Okay, well, so mixed media is just that I'm using more than one media in my work, where like I'm not just an oil painter, I'm not just a watercolorist, and then the majority of people that work in mixed media also tend to work in non-traditional media. So outside of like what I might purchase, like the media I might purchase at an art supply store, for example. Mm-hmm. So that's what that is.
Okay, but you primarily work with tin.
Yeah, primarily tin and what I refer to as found objects, and again, it doesn't mean that they're always found, but they're objects or materials that go in with the metal and it's non-traditional art materials.
Yeah.
So but primarily, metal, repurposed metal.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of your work. I think
thanks.
It's very colorful. I think it's very clever. I think it's very creative, obviously. A lot of your work has messages. So do you have a message in your head that you want to convey through the art, or is the art telling a message to someone according to their interpretation of it?
Well, I will say that the majority of my work is narrative. So there's a story there. And it might be a very short story, very brief one. It might be serious, might be for fun. And those stories sometimes are suggested by the materials. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll see something on a can or something like that. But then I could be checking out a Kroger's and I overhear two people talking, and I say, "Wait, there's an idea." And when I get home, I write it down, and I make a piece about that. You know, so there's where the stories come from, sort of.
The one that that comes to mind right now, it's on your website. It's the day the steel mill left town, and it's literally a steel mill with legs on it walking.
Right. Well, you know, you hear about well, especially in the last, let's say 30 plus years maybe, about different industries leaving certain communities. Mm-hmm. Back in maybe in the 70s and 80s, was a lot of them were going south, you know, into the southern states for various reasons. But and I know some places just completely shut down. But I don't know, I was just starting to think about that whole idea about when factories leave, and I was teaching a workshop in Pittsburgh, and I had a woman in my workshop whose grandfather was the owner of a company in Pittsburgh that made tin toys, similar to Mark's in Glendale. Okay, and here they moved to Booneville, Alabama, like in the late. I think I'm saying that right. I think it's in Alabama, in the late 1960s, because he could get workers for less money. You know, it's that whole idea of moving and making a bigger profit. But anyway.
Well, so let's talk about art as a hobby, which was something that it was for you for a while, and then the transition into making art as a way of life.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Art has never been a hobby for me, although it's been labeled that for me. Like when I was a kid.
Okay, so people.
Oh yeah. When I was a kid, like, and I was making art all the time, so I'm always drawing. And when I was able to finally get to paint or color chalk, pastels, that kind of thing, and people in my family say, "Oh, what a wonderful hobby," you know, and. When I was a kid, I would try. Now, you know, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do when I'm an adult. There's adults that do this, but I didn't have the wherewithal to be able to put up a good argument. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, what a nice hobby you have, you know. And I had an aunt who lived in Steubenville, and she bought me my very first sketchbook and my very first set of Conte pencils. They were pastel pencils, and they were made in France. I thought that was a big deal. I was almost afraid to use them, but. She bought me this sketchbook, and I thought, wow, because I used to use the cardboard out of shirts, and then my grandfather worked in a power plant. He would bring home these sheets of paper that had 1/4-inch blue squares. So I never really had paper just devoted to art, and here she bought that for me. But whenever I'd be drawing, she goes, "Oh, Bobby, that's going to be a wonderful hobby for you, but you've got to work on your schoolwork. Like, all right, so nobody got it.
Yeah, you did though.
Well, yeah, I did. I had this dream. I didn't know how it was going to happen. It happened in some really backdoor ways, though. So.
But that's very cool because I think it was meant to be, and so it was. It just wasn't on the timeline.
No, it wasn't on my timeline, and it wasn't in the way that I wanted. It wasn't the dream that I had.
Right. So, I mean, you've done a number of things, right? You've been in the steel mill, right. and you're a professor at West Liberty.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the greatest job I ever had, really. As far as, a job, if you're not making your own work, that was a great gig. I'm lucky. I feel real fortunate I had that.
Yeah. So may I ask how old you are?
Yeah, 76.
76 years old. Oh, wow.
Creeps me out. And the only time I come to grips with it is when somebody like right now, or you're at the doctor's office or something, and you have to give your date of birth, your age, stuff like that. I go, holy crap! What is it? So, but I think it's better not to think about it too much. You know what I mean? I don't mean to hide from it or to try to.
No, you're not denying it.
No,
You're just
I know where I'm at.
Yeah.
If I didn't know where, then I wouldn't have been here. Yeah. You're right. Okay. When you call me. Okay. So. Okay.
So what is your philosophy on aging, or do you even have one?
I don't know if it's real philosophy, but I think this came about with me when I worked in the mill.
Okay.
And here's what I noticed. Now, this isn't a Harvard study, so it's not precise.
No, I want your philosophy.
Okay,
yes,
so here it
yours.
is. So when I worked in the mill, and I was involved in a lot of things outside of the mill, and part of that was making art. And another thing was I was into antiques and stuff, and collecting things. But I remember working around guys that had 30 or 40 years in the mill, and then they would retire. And what I would discover is, and again, that's why I mean this isn't like this hardcore study, and that is that if somebody had an interest outside of the mill, I don't care if it was fly fishing, I don't care, what it was, going to NASCAR, or they were helping with Little League Baseball, but if they had some kind of interest, it seemed like they had a fuller life when they left. But those guys, and there were so many people who in the mill loved their job. And that's great. I mean, they loved, that was their whole world. When they didn't have anything outside of that, we would see their obituary within months after they retired. I saw that so many times. And I thought, man, you got to have something beyond. You got to have something beyond yourself or in what you're doing as far as maybe at work sometimes. I was fortunate because the job I had here at West Liberty was in the visual arts. So that was directly connected to me. So I'm in with people making art, and then when I'm at home, I can make art. So it was great,
Yeah. Did it kind of scare you when you retired then?
Oh,
no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't like, yeah. I'd like to tell you that, I couldn't wait to blow this popsicle stand so I could just work in the studio. Well, when Chris and I were talking about it, we were talking about retirement, and I can see my age coming up, and it was my 70th birthday was coming, okay? And it's, and I told Chris, I said, what, maybe it's time. It's time, because I said, I would like to put in more studio time as long as I can, and so maybe it's time for me to retire. So I started to set that up. But I'm going to tell you what, when I left here, it took me probably about 18 months to kind of deal with it mentally.
It's a grief. People don't realize it's a grief.
Yeah, because here I was, I'm working in the studio. I have this time, but there's some things that are gone. Like I'm in the studio, I'm by myself. I'm working, and so we're here every day. I had my colleagues, and I was real fortunate because the majority of the people I worked with, I really got along well with. And then I had my students. That's not to say that occasionally you had a problem student, but they were in the minority. The majority of them, you loved being around them, you loved their energy, and that was gone. And then the other thing is, this will be kind of silly, but you are no longer, there's certain professions where you're fortunate enough, like a doctor, for example. It doesn't matter, they're always a doctor. And if you're working as a professor, you're professor. Hey, Professor V, Professor Villamagna, then when you're out of that, that's gone. You're just, oh, hey, yeah, it's Robert, or it's Bob, it's Mr. Villamagna, Okay, and so you miss that too.
Yeah, your identity is tied to
right.
some
That
of it,
identity
yeah.
was there, and but after, what really cured it though, besides the time, was in my second year away from here. That's when COVID hit, and I thought, oh Lord, I wouldn't have wanted to have to teach a hands-on visual arts curriculum via the internet.
Zoom.
Yeah, no
So
fun.
the timing was right.
Yeah,
really.
the timing was right. Of course, who knew it at the time, but yeah, so it worked out.
So what keeps you energized and keeps you feeling young? Because I feel like you're a kid at heart.
Yeah, maybe too much so sometimes, but no, what keeps me going or what keeps me young, I think, it's a combination, first of all, of people in my life, especially my wife, Chris, and because she's a ball of fun, and so I like being around her, and thank goodness she likes being around me, much to some people's probably scratching their head, but the other part is I get to do something like some. At night, sometimes I can't wait. In the morning, I'm going to get back in the studio. Matter of fact, if I have a dental appointment or a doctor's appointment, I go, oh, damn it. And she go, wait a minute, that's only an hour or two. I said, yeah, I know, but it's messing up my morning because I'm going in the studio to work. And then I always try to have some kind of an exhibition lined up, something to focus on, or a way that I'm going to share my work somewhere. And so that really helps me. And I like what I do, so I'm fortunate that way.
Yeah.
I like making work.
Yeah.
I like making art.
I've noticed that a lot of people say creativity is a key to aging awesomely, and I would say that's especially true for you.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I would definitely believe that and support it. And it's sad because, when you're a little kid, everybody's creative. You go into a first or second grade class and you say it to kids, how many people in here know how to make art? Okay? And about every damn kid in that class is going to throw their hand up, You get them somewhere around 4th or 5th or 6th grade, say, how many people in here are artists? You might get 2 or 3. We start to lose it. I really, and it's almost, and I don't mean it's physically beaten out of you, but it's not supported in most places. It's like, oh, that's not important. We got to focus over here. Math, that's important. Communication, English, hey, that's important. I understand that. Sciences,
that can make you a living, but this makes a life, right?
Exactly. And so I just think that having the arts in your life are really, really important. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I
sure.
thank you for the time that you spent with us. It's been wonderful and
Oh,
enlightening.
good.
Thanks, Bob.
Good. It's been fun.
If you would like to learn more about Bob's work, you can visit his website, robertvillamagna.com, or you can find him every year at Ogilvy